America's most diverse union, representing a broad range of public employees, including more than 95% of Montana's public education employees. Everyone from bus drivers to cafeteria workers to janitors and maintenance people, certified teachers, classified support personnel, higher education, and everyone in the university system. I'm excited to introduce a few of my friends and fellow education champions to you tonight. So let's get started. I am so excited to introduce to you our very special guest, my friend, Denise Juneau. Denise's story takes her from Head Start to Harvard. After graduating from Browning High School, located on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, Denise received her bachelor's degree in English, which makes me very nervous, from Montana State University. She continued her education and earned a master's education from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. In 2008, she became the first American Indian woman in the country ever elected to an executive statewide office. So cool. When she was elected to be Montana's Superintendent of Public Instruction. She was reelected in 2012. Denise currently leads Washington State's largest K-12 school district as the Superintendent of Seattle Public Schools. Denise, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda, and it's good to see so many great smiley faces from my time in Montana, and anytime I can pop into a Montana event, it makes me happy. I just think that there are so many good things that are going on there. I'm now over in Seattle, leading Seattle Public Schools, a lot of big things going on. I know that nobody ever thought that we'd have to be leading through a pandemic and a crisis in education and all the protests that are going on and just coming to a reckoning as a country, really, for so many big issues that are happening. I'm doing my small part here to make sure our students are engaged. We're in a remote learning setting right now and following science and data and public health to make sure that when we roll back into our in-person building, learning, that things will be set up in a way where we're mitigating and monitoring health as much as possible. I also know that the people who are on this call with me are doing phenomenal work. Our current governor, Steve Bullock, is following data and science and doing all the things that a leader needs to be doing right now in this crisis. And I keep an eye on Montana, and I'm just really proud of the work that's happening in the governor's office and what's happening. And I cannot wait to call him Senator Bullock. And Melissa, I know you are out there, and just thank you again for stepping up and running and trying to make sure that we have competence at the Office of Public Instruction. When I left OPI, it was in really good shape. People were doing good work. There was, Graduation Matters Montana, just like we were coordinating so many awesome efforts, and all that's been lost in 4 years. But when we're able to call you Superintendent Romano, you can bring back some competence and integrity to the Office of Public Instruction. So looking forward to that too. But just happy to be here, and thanks so much for having me, and looking forward to a conversation.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We miss you so much, and that degree in English is very much missed now with a superintendent who cannot make complete sentences using, subjects and predicates. And we are looking forward to a new dawn. So thanks for being here. Another friend of ours, Melissa Romano, is joining us tonight. As you know, Melissa Romano is a mother of four, a public school teacher, and a proud union member. We didn't get to say that in Denise's intro. Yeah, Denise is a union member too. Melissa is here in Helena, Montana. She's taught for over 15 years and has received various accolades throughout her career. She was Montana's 2008 Teacher of the Year, which is a really, really big deal. And she received national recognition in 2012 as a recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. When she's not teaching, she and her family enjoy hiking and camping on Montana's beautiful public lands. Melissa is running for Superintendent of Public Instruction to advocate for our public schools and to ensure every child has access to a quality public education. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. I am delighted to be here. Thank you, President Curtis, for that lovely introduction. And as Amanda said, I'm running to be your next state superintendent of public instruction because I believe it is time to restore competent and focused leadership to the Office of Public Instruction. My opponent, current Superintendent Arnson, has proven that she does not care about our public schools. She has been absent since day one. And now when we need a leader the most, she, again, is nowhere to be found unless she's complaining about directives to protect our students and teachers. In fact, she didn't show up for the last Education Interim Committee meeting of the year so she could go to a partisan rally in Belgrade. And on the agenda at this meeting was how her office was going to return $800,000 she owes public schools. And when she does show up, it's just really clear that her ultimate goal is to defund public education. And teachers know this. MFPE took an unprecedented step and unanimously condemned her candidacy for state superintendent. And to date, only one working public school teacher has donated to her reelection campaign. She simply cannot be in charge of our public schools. I'm running to put the public back in the state superintendent of public instruction. I'm running because I believe every child deserves access to a quality public education. And I believe for our children's sake, we must do better than my opponent. Now more than ever, we need a leader who shows up every day to promote and protect high-quality public education, who will advocate for all students and who understands the challenges that our school communities face, particularly during this really difficult time. I'm really excited to be here with you this evening and to talk about how I'm going to do just that. So thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. It's so great to be here with all of you. And the star of the hour, perhaps, is Governor Bullock. Governor Bullock, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Governor Bullock is a proud product of Montana's public schools and knows that a good public education system is the best way to ensure everyone can have a fair shot in life. That's why during Governor Bullock's time in office, he has been a champion for Montana's public schools and teachers. Under Governor Bullock, Montana has made record investments in our public education system. He froze in-state tuition for Montana colleges 6 out of 8 years, making our state one of the most affordable in the nation. During his tenure, Governor Bullock oversaw an expansion of broadband internet to public schools, resulting in nearly 100% of K-12 schools in Montana finally meeting the FCC's minimum goals for bandwidth. Who knew that in this pandemic, that would end up being such an important part of just providing our constitutionally guaranteed free quality public education in Montana. Without that, we would not be able to do that right now. And during this pandemic, he's trusted public health officials and local school districts to make the best decisions for their students and their teachers. Thank you for that, Governor Bullock. On the other hand, Senator Daines has been an ardent supporter of kind of Elsie Arnson on the national level in Betsy DeVos. Senator Daines was the deciding vote to confirm Betsy DeVos, and he took over $70,000 from her and her family, despite DeVos repeatedly proposing budget plans that cut funding for critical programs like the Special Olympics, teacher training, and after-school programs, and student mental health. Who does that? Steve Daines supported the Supreme Court decision on Espinoza, which allowed our public dollars to go to private religious institutions that benefit the select few and discriminate. In the Senate, Steve Bullock will continue to be a strong voice for Montana's students and teachers, not the special interests. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Governor Bullock. Thank you for your work in Montana. We're so happy to be here with you.
No, thanks so much, Amanda, for moderating. It's so great also to be on with my good friend Denise Juneau and Melissa Romano. But the real stars aren't us on the screen. It's the teachers working every day, the parents supporting their local public schools, the folks out there that know what I've always known is that quality public education really is our great equalizer. It takes every single one of us and affords that opportunity to become whatever we might be able to become. And without it, the discrepancies in a society are so significant. So Amanda mentioned, growing up, I went to the public schools right here in Montana. And what's fun is seeing my kids go to the very same schools that my wife, Lisa, and I went to. And I understand the impact of a good public education can have on a young person because I've lived it. And that's one of the reasons why, as governor, brought Democrats and Republicans together to make historic investments in our public education system. I know walking out every year that we'll be investing about $175 million a year more than we were investing when I walked into this office.
Wow.
And throughout my time in office, we have been able to get real things done for our students, our teachers, and the education community. As Amanda noted, like you can go back about 4 years ago, and only about 75% of our schools were connected at even FCC minimums. Now we're at 100%, and the cost of that connectivity has gone down significantly. We save families and students over $7.2 million in tuition costs each year by bringing college classes into our high schools through dual enrollment programs. And more than just about cost savings, opening up the eyes and the confidence of our students to recognize that they are college material. And that's not only just in the advanced 4 years or literature. Those classes are also in career training and welding, because not every student's going to go on that same path. We know that the earlier that we get kids support in education, the better they'll do in life. That's why even before our public system, that we got publicly funded dollars for preschool, knowing what a difference that could make. Actually, through that investment, we'd more than doubled the number of children being served in a high-quality pre-kindergarten program. And sometimes we got to recognize that school is the only place that kids get a hot meal and kids struggle with food insecurity. And Lisa and I have actually worked, my wife Lisa and I have worked so hard to improve access to school breakfast programs in our public schools, thinking that now 61% of food insecure children have gained access to breakfast, up from 41% just a handful of years ago. And I think this is a real distinction in our Senate race. Look, we count on local government and our local communities and our state legislature to do the lion's share of the efforts when it comes to our quality public education system. But Steve Daines has not been a champion of that system. If you wake up one day and say, I can't believe Betsy DeVos did this, you can give him the credit for that, because he was the deciding vote to make her the education secretary, someone that had no experience when it came to education. And he was rewarded handsomely with about $80,000 from the DeVos family. So it's no surprise that he's even refused to stand up to Secretary DeVos when she cut funding for Montana's rural schools. He supported school vouchers that undermined funding for public education, cheered on that Supreme Court decision to overturn Montana's ban on school vouchers. At the end of the day, I have got to see over the last 8 years as governor incredible innovation in our public schools, incredible opportunity along the way. And that's what we need to support. We have about, in our country, 51 million kids go to public school, 3 million go to the charters and the vouchers. You need somebody in the Senate that's going to be focusing on that great equalizer of the public schools, not just spending all his time on privatizing. And that's what we've seen out of Senator Daines. Just like I have as governor in the Senate, I'll stand up to school privatization and charterization and all those benefits for just the wealthy few and fight for investments in our public education, increasing resources for teachers and principals, and affordable early childhood education. So thanks for joining us tonight. But for the educators on, thanks for what you do every day to make a difference in kids' lives.
Thank you, Governor Bullock. We all appreciate what you're doing in the middle of this pandemic so much. And, you know, Melissa is, of course, a practicing teacher, and Denise and I are former teachers, and we so appreciate the work that you've done to promote and protect public education. But if you talk that long on all of these questions, I'm only going to get to ask two. So we're going to shorten these up because I have a long list of questions for the three of you that Montanans really, really want to hear the answers to. So you've kind of touched on this, Governor Bullock, and I'm interested to hear from you three, what have you done and what will you do throughout your time in office to protect public schools? Governor Bullock?
Well, I did talk quite a bit about that, both what I have done and what I will do. Is I'll never forget what I learned by being in these schools as governor. And the notion that what we have seen is that Senator Daines is more focused on not the 51 million American kids that are in public schools, but in the 3 million that might be in private or charters. So I'll stand up and make sure we're continuing to actually support a quality public education. And that means everything from the restrictions that might come down from Washington, D.C. that interfere with the teacher's ability to teach, to the funding that's necessary, and the recognition at the federal level that at the end of the day, quality education happens in every single classroom across our state, and that's what we have to be supporting.
Thank you, Governor Bullock. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Amanda. You know, I would say for me, this race is about leadership. And really, over the last 3.5 years, there's just been such a lack of leadership at the Office of Public Instruction. And so from day one, I plan to be a leader. I plan to be a strong advocate. You know, the superintendent should be Montana's strongest and most vocal voice when it comes to promoting and protecting public education. And that hasn't been the case. And so I plan to be a very strong advocate. I plan to show up at the legislature and actually advocate for bills that would further Montana's education system, and then definitely oppose really bad bills, especially bills that you know, just would be detrimental to Montana's public education system and compromise the integrity of what our public education system is. And so this is about leadership, and I intend to be a very strong leader on day one.
Yeah,
Thank you, future superintendent. Yeah, Superintendent Juneau.
Yes.
I am so looking forward to coming to visit Senator Daines in his office in DC. And while I'm there, I want to come visit the next Secretary of Education, Denise Juneau. And you've done so much for public education in your career. So where do you see the future going here?
Be visiting Senator Bullock in DC.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, no.
It's okay. We know it's going to be Senator Bullock. I think, you know, it is public education has always been at the root, and being the superintendent of public instruction for 8 years in Montana just really brought home the ideas that, you know, the governor and I both fought back against privatization, all the issues, the funding that, you know, the part of the legislature wanted to funnel off into privatization, and just standing strong on all those issues that public funds should remain in public schools. And now seeing it from a district level as well, it's the same issues. And I think Melissa spoke to it really well, is people need leadership. And from both of these candidates, what I've heard is the ability to show up and know the importance of showing up. And when you show up, that you are advocating for public education. Being here, in Seattle, I know now that, schools are asked to do so much. We have served over 2 million meals since March to our families. We are filling in gaps in our internet access with hotspots. Those are things that the federal government should be taking care of. State governments, they should certainly be advocating from leadership, because those, as you said earlier, Amanda, those are the access points. It's the access to public education right now. And the idea that the governor led a charge to make sure that broadband was across the state was visionary, and really the ability of kids to be able to log on now is super important. And so, schools are asked to do so much beyond just learning, and our teachers rise to the challenge every day. And I think people just need to understand how much our educators are being asked to do and our school systems. And we need people in office all across the spectrum that will support those efforts.
Thank you for acknowledging how hard it is to be in public education right now. All of our members at MFPE have continued to provide public services throughout this pandemic. We have members in corrections and members, in the Office of Public Assistance, members in revenue, and they've all continued to provide those public services. Now that it's fall and our education members are continuing to provide public education in a face-to-face setting, it's so great to hear you all acknowledge the hard work that our members are doing to provide these services. And one reason that we have all agreed to put ourselves in harm's way and continue to provide these services, especially in public education, is because there is such a huge risk right now of the privatizers stepping in to say, oh, they're not providing the services, so we're happy to do it. So I'm interested in hearing your opinions about how privatizing public schools would harm our public education system. Future Senator Bullock.
Look, privatization attempts like vouchers, they're taking taxpayer dollars, giving it to private schools instead of public schools. And it's not like it's adding additional dollars. It's not like there's a lot of fat to be cutting in our public school budgets, especially not in our small rural schools. And that like a Class C school is really not only so important for the community, it's the social center for the town. The impact of losing those schools and the impact for the kids can be horrible as well. So we know that essentially what it's doing is it's taking money from the public school system. And more than that, too, they're not held to the same standards of accountability and transparency as public schools. Too often, they're just to benefit a wealthy few. They're not beholden to the local communities. They're not always inclusive of every single person that might need that education, like guaranteeing equal access for disabilities. So at the end of the day, it really is taking dollars from a system that is so important to all of us, that I call the great equalizer, and affording opportunities for the few. We're much better than that as a state and as a country.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, I want to be quick because, everything that Governor Bullock said, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with. I really appreciate his comments about, especially here in Montana, some of our small schools are truly the heart and soul of a community. It's where communities gather. It's where they go to watch a sporting event or check out an art show or a theater production. And ultimately, when funds are siphoned away from those public schools, it's at a real detriment to a community, and it can really rip apart a community. And that's not a Montana value at all. We want to make sure that we are uplifting our communities. And at the end of the day, this is about providing resources for kids. And when public dollars are funneled away from already, cash-strapped public schools, that ultimately is less funds and less opportunities for our kids. I want every kid to have the resources they need to be successful, to go on and live a fulfilling and a productive life. And so funneling funds away from public schools, rips apart communities and just is not good for Montana.
Thank you.
I cannot add anything.
What? Denise Juneau is speechless. Those are some good answers. If Denise
on and on, man. I think that was very all-encompassing, very good. And I think it shows such a stark difference to their opponents right now, that if you have people who believe in public education in office, public education will thrive.
No kidding. You know, we get criticized as a union for endorsing Democrats, but I keep telling folks over and over and over again, we invite all of the candidates, and the candidates that you see in front of you showed up to our invitation. And we ask the same questions, and the questions are, do you support public services? Do you oppose privatization? And, you know, Melissa and Governor Bullock, they answer those questions correctly, and we're so appreciative of it. So I'm very glad that we have time for at least one more question here. What role do you folks feel that the federal government plays in shaping Montana's education system? Specifically, Governor Bullock, why is it critical that we have a representative in the Senate who will stand up for public education? And Melissa, why is it critical that we have a superintendent of instruction that will stand up for Montana's public education?
Melissa, why don't you go first? You two are the ones that actually have to deal with what the federal government does or doesn't do.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. You know, and I really appreciate the question. You know, it's difficult to even talk about this right now because it just makes me fired up every time I think about Education Secretary DeVos. You know, currently, she has really made it her mission to dismantle public education. And now more than ever, we have to have a state superintendent of public instruction who is going to stand up against her proposed deep cuts to federal funding, her privatization agenda, and her complete and total disregard for the safety of our students and our teachers. It just makes me angry when I think about everything that she stands for. We need a superintendent who is going to fight back and who knows what's good for Montana students. You know, I don't know if there may be people on here, especially educators who have been following the news lately, but you know, recently DeVos had asked to distribute coronavirus relief funds in a manner that sent more aid to private schools. And the rule was just struck down and made it illegal nationwide. And our superintendent had already dispersed all of those funds under that discriminatory guidance. And so now our public school system in Montana we're out $800,000. And, you know, it's absolutely critical. If I were superintendent, there were other states who did this, I would have been pushing back and saying, no, that's not okay. That is just discriminatory, and we're not going to funnel money away from public schools. And so it's absolutely critical. I said before, this is about leadership and being a strong leader. And yeah, I am looking forward to doing that on day one.
We're all looking forward to that, Melissa. We cannot wait. Governor Bullock?
Or to be, yeah, like, look, we know that from a federal government perspective that about only 10% of the overall funding for our public education system comes from the federal government, right? Most of it comes from the states and locals, but that's an important 10%. Taking care of individuals with disabilities, making sure Title I is funded, ensuring that actually that you're being additive, not taking away from the system. And Melissa's like spot on, right? That Betsy DeVos has spent her whole time not focusing on how do you support and enhance public education, but how do you take away from it and privatize and charterize. The federal government, and as a senator, I think the federal government can play an incredibly important role in education in supporting that. And the way that I will do that is actually listen to the educators on the ground, both what they need. Like, I think the federal government ought to be playing a much more significant role in publicly funded pre-kindergarten, but also what they don't need. meaning that sometimes the good idea machine in Washington, D.C. has real impacts on teachers in the classroom and on the ground. So as we're looking, as D.C. looks to what we ought to be doing in supporting public education, first and foremost, it's the support, and then it's also making sure that it's not causing more challenges as opposed to being helpful.
Thank you, Governor Bullock. I can't thank the three of you enough for joining us tonight. I know it's 7:30 at night Mountain Time, and that means that you all have easily put in a 12 or 13-hour day, which as a union leader, I just cannot support. You need to spend time with your families and spend time for yourselves. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything you have done and are doing for public education and public services in Montana. I cannot emphasize how important these two races are. Denise, we are so proud of you here in Montana and cannot wait to just follow the trajectory of the rest of your career. We will always claim you. You are an MFPE member until you die. There's no escaping us. Same with you, Melissa. You too just embody what it means to be an MFPE member. Governor Bullock, your support and work with this union and our members, 23,000 members across the state, has not gone unnoticed. And we will work our tails off to help you earn the seat that you deserve in Washington, D.C., because it's just so important for not only the state and public services here in Montana, but for this nation that is hurting and in such turmoil and chaos right now. Your level-headed leadership is exactly what Montana should be sending to DC. You are such a great representative of what it means to be a Montanan, so reasonable and willing to work with anyone to get the job done, to deliver for Montanans and for Americans. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're very appreciative of your time, and I will now hand it off to an MDP field organizer, Will Ostertag. Hi, Will.
Hi there, and thanks for having me. My name is Will Ostertag, and I'm a field organizer working in Billings and Stillwater County. Prior to getting involved in this kind of work, I taught middle school math at a public K-8 school. I saw firsthand some of the challenges that exist in our public education system, and I also had the privilege of working with some of the most dedicated and inspiring individuals that I've ever known. Although I was surrounded by an incredible team, there are still so many structural barriers in place that make it difficult, if not impossible, for all students to reach their potential. Teachers and families alike are being asked to do too much. I knew that I wanted to get more directly involved in making sure that government and politics don't stymie students' abilities, but instead provide the necessary resources for academic and social achievement. That's why I'm working to elect Steve Bullock and Melissa Romano. Governor Bullock has been a strong advocate for Montana's public school system, and unlike her opponent, Melissa Romano will never support a proposal to decrease funding to our classrooms. We are fighting every day to ensure that Montana students will have access to a quality education, no matter where they are born or what their socioeconomic situation is. This starts with school funding, but it doesn't stop there. We need a public preschool option. We need to quickly address our teacher shortage, and we must implement social emotional standards to help grow our students as proud Montanans. If you care about the future of this state, then you care deeply about electing officials who will prioritize strengthening our public schools. There's no way to overcome any of the other challenges that we face without ensuring that our students are maximizing or exceeding their potential. As we all know, we have less than 7 weeks until November 3rd. Reach out to your local field organizer today about opportunities to get involved. There are a variety of ways to help, and every little bit matters. Click the link on your screen to sign up as a volunteer, and someone will get in touch with you. Or text the word volunteer to 30200. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your support, and thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for the work that you're doing to get these folks elected. And I hope everyone who's joined us tonight will join us in the bigger picture of actually doing the work. It's one thing to join a roundtable and listen to this discussion, but it's another thing to actually pick up the phone or contribute money or knock on someone's door. So thanks, Will, for doing that work. Denise, thank you for being our special guest tonight. You are just one of my all-time sheroes. I love you so much. We miss you. Governor and future Senator Bullock, thank you so much. And onward and upward. And future Superintendent Romano, I just can't wait for you to put an end to this mess that we have in that office right now. Thank you, everyone who's joined us tonight. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Go fight, win.